Melania, you're not ditching the allegations of potential relationships with Epstein and Ghislaine. Well, you called her G.
Melania just got absolutely destroyed, and the timing couldn't be worse. New Epstein files have exposed her, ripping apart the carefully curated story that she tried to sell to the world. What was supposed to be her glamorous comeback weekend turned into a brutal public humiliation she can't escape.
My film is about to begin. Hello, America.
I watched the timing destroy the entire strategy. The same weekend this documentary hit theaters, Epstein-related material resurfaced right on top of her release. So while Melania was trying to control the narrative, I saw the narrative blow right past her. The story she wanted people to focus on got drowned out by the story she clearly did not want people talking about.
Amid cancelled screenings, empty cinemas, and just a handful of tickets sold.
Melania Trump is getting hit with the karma she deserves. She thought this was going to be her big weekend with her theatrical release of Melania, which has been the biggest disaster in movie industry history. Nobody wants to see it.
And I watched the audience's response make it even worse. Empty seats and unsold tickets. Screenings where hardly anyone even showed up. When you spend big money and you still can't get people through the door, that tells me something. Not that people didn't hear about it, but they heard about it and chose not to care. And while all of that was happening, something much more damaging entered the picture.
More than 3 million pages, 2,000 videos, and 180,000 images. CNN teams are carefully sifting through the largest, and what the Justice Department says is the last, batch of Jeffrey Epstein files.
The alleged 2002 email.
We learned that she had a special nickname for Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein's co-conspirator who was involved in underage sex trafficking.
This is where I stop talking about reviews and start talking about reputation. The reported email from Melania to Ghislaine Maxwell changes the tone of the entire conversation for me. It's familiar. Dear G, that's not how you write to someone you barely know. That's how you write to someone you're comfortable with.
Melania referred to Ghislaine as G, and she told G that you had a great photo in the New York Magazine article of Jeffrey.
The timing matters to me, guys. This was during the period when Epstein and Maxwell were active in the very activities that later became the center of trafficking investigations. And that email, Melania reportedly compliments a New York Magazine profile of Jeffrey Epstein. She talks about how he looks. That detail alone, it just hits differently. That directly clashes with the public story that I've been hearing. Because the public story has always been distant, but when an email shows warmth, familiarity, and ongoing contact, then I see that defense start to fall apart.
As Melania wanted to propagandize her past and tell this glamorous story which nobody was buying, her real dark past was coming out. You see, Melania's name appeared in the Epstein documents.
And that's where Trump comes back into the picture for me, because this isn't just Melania in isolation, this is Trump world. Palm Beach, Mar-a-Lago, Epstein, Maxwell. The same names, the same locations, the same social orbit. Trump has a long documented history of public comments about Epstein. So when Melania's alleged email surfaces praising Epstein and communicating warmly with Maxwell, it doesn't exist in a vacuum. It fits into a much bigger, much uglier ecosystem.
The Melania Trump movie, which is releasing in theaters this week, is on track to flop badly. Nobody is going to see it.
And what makes this hit harder for me is the contrast. While Melania is trying to sell a carefully curated version of her life on screen, these documents and reports are pulling my attention in the opposite direction, towards questions that she doesn't want asked, towards connections she tried to downplay, towards a past that looks a lot messier than the glossy story being sold. That's why this weekend hurts so badly in my personal view. And let's be real about Trump here, okay? His presence hangs over all of this for me. The Epstein files, the past comments, the social overlap, the power networks. When these stories resurface, they don't just land on Melania, they land on the entire brand, the entire Trump world narrative of victimhood. And media bias doesn't work for me. When documents and emails start circulating, at that point, it's not about haters. For me, it's about the patterns. The patterns.
I could send this email to you and then you can't unsend it and it'll be on the record and you'll get caught on STDs, Russian girls, whatever he's threatening. Is it true? We don't know.
And that's what made this weekend so different in my eyes. This wasn't a normal bad release. This was a moment where the attempt to control the story completely failed. The documentary was supposed to clean things up. Instead, it reminded people of exactly what they were trying to forget. It looked like exposure, and once that happens, no amount of glossy storytelling can put the story back inside the box. And that's where Palm Beach and Mar-a-Lago enter the chat.
Spencer Kuvin is privy to what many of his clients' victims told him in confidence as their lawyer about what happened to them with Epstein. Now he says very many powerful people do need to be accountable.
Palm Beach isn't just a random vacation spot in this particular gruesome story. It's central. Epstein's operations in Palm Beach are part of public record. That's where law enforcement cases, investigations, and survivor accounts have been repeatedly pointed. So when Palm Beach shows up in friendly social communication, it doesn't feel natural. It feels loaded.
Isn't that the time when Donald Trump brought the Mar-a-Lago spa with underage girls to Jeffrey Epstein's home a few miles down the road in Palm Beach?
Then you add Mar-a-Lago into that same geography. Trump's club, Trump's social hub, the same region, the same elite circles, the same people are showing up at the same exact places. That's not conspiracy talk. That's how elite social ecosystems work. Small circles, repeated overlap, the same names rotating through the same rooms, and Trump's past public comments about Epstein don't help clean this up. Those comments are on record. That's not opinion. That's history. So when you look at Melania's alleged communication, Trump's past remarks, Palm Beach, and Mar-a-Lago together, it starts to look less like a random coincidence and more like a tightly connected social network. That's why people aren't buying the "we barely knew them" story anymore, because when everything points back to the same zip codes, the same clubs, and the same social circles, distance becomes a hard sell. Then comes the lawsuit story, and this is where things get almost comical in a dark, really dark way.
He doesn't say he's sorry. In fact, Michael Wolff sues you in New York State Court. You don't countersue him. You run away and avoid service so Michael Wolff can't serve you with the complaint. Then, you're following me? Then you go to federal court.
Melania's team reportedly threatened a $1 billion lawsuit against Michael Wolff. $1 billion. That's not a normal threat. That's a nuclear threat. That's meant to scare someone into silence. That's meant to say, back off, or we will crush you. But here's the problem. When Wolff didn't fold, he sued first, and then nothing. No massive countersuit or billion-dollar legal hammer. That's not the behavior of someone confident in their position. That's not how a billion-dollar threat looks when you actually believe in it. That's pretty much how a bluff looks when it's called.
And so, and based on Drop Site News' articles and emails that they've got from Epstein and Ehud Barak and others, the we is super duper clear. It's Israel.
It creates the impression that the threat was louder than the legal reality. But when it came time to actually fight, the energy changed. And when that happens, people start asking why. Why threaten so loudly if you're not prepared to follow through? That question doesn't help credibility, it hurts it. Now add the DOJ Epstein files dropping into the mess. And the timing, well, the timing becomes brutal.
The entire entertainment industry is just dying under our feet, and Melania gets $40 million for a movie that nobody needed, nobody asked for, and nobody wants.
These releases happened during the same window as the documentary push. That means instead of headlines being dominated by Melania's curated life story, the conversation got hijacked by Epstein-related material. That's not great for PR. Not great for optics, especially when Trump's name is part of the broader Epstein file discussion, and summaries as well being talked about publicly. So while Melania is trying to sell a cleaned up, glossy version of her past, the DOJ material is dragging attention right back to the ugliest part of the Trump world orbit. That's a narrative collision. You can't outmarket federal documents and resurfacing allegations. It just doesn't work like that. Then there's the director situation. And this is where the story takes another turn.
Melania's director is also controversial, Brett Ratner, banished by Hollywood after accusations of sexual misconduct in 2017.
The director chosen for the documentary is not a neutral, controversy-free figure. He has a past of allegations tied to sexual misconduct. His name has also been reported as appearing in Epstein-related contexts. That alone raises serious questions, but what makes it even worse is the claim that Melania personally insisted on his directing the project. Now that's a choice. So now people are asking a very uncomfortable question. If you're trying to clean up your image, if you're trying to sell a redemption story, why would you pick a director with that kind of baggage? Why attach your brand to someone that has that kind of a history? Why choose someone whose name shows up in the same circles you're trying to distance yourself from? It just reinforces the same theme again and again. The same people, the same circles, the same names, the same patterns. I mean, guys, at some point, coincidence stops being a convincing explanation.
Who knows? Maybe this will be the next Suits, and it'll just have a long tail. 20 years from now, Melania will be the #1 movie on Netflix.
Like, you guys have this show with the Queen in it?
And that's why this section of the story hits so hard. It's not one email. It's not one lawsuit. It's not one no-show. It's the accumulation of everything, the layering, the way every piece seems to point back to the same elite ecosystem that Melania and Trump claim they're not really part of. The documentary was supposed to reset her image. Instead, it reminded people exactly which world she comes from. And the more people look at the receipts, the harder it becomes to pretend that this is all just bad luck. I mean, at this point, I stop believing in coincidence when the director, the Epstein circle, and Melania's social world keeps overlapping somehow. It starts to look like a closed ecosystem instead of a random choice. The same elite names, the same party circuits, the same gatherings, the same social gravity pulling the same exact people together over and over. You can call it bad luck once, You can't call it bad luck every single time. When patterns repeat, they stop being accidents and start looking like connections people just don't want to explain. Then there's the backstory. The version of Melania sold to the public is polished and heroic, but it doesn't always align with what has been questioned or reported. Education claims the supermodel narrative, the modeling world that allegedly introduced young women to powerful men, the Kit Kat Club origin story, none of this feels organic.